Volkswagen's third generation Tiguan has been subtly moved up market, but will retain a familiar appeal to hordes of loyal customers who liked this lower mid-sized SUV's two predecessors. It's been redesigned outside and completely upgraded within, plus it's more electrified, bigger and better connected.
The next decade will see the model lineup of the UK's most popular car brand, Volkswagen, change beyond all recognition. Only three constants from the combustion era will remain: a Golf model, a GTI sub-brand, and the nameplate of the car we look at here, the Tiguan family SUV. This one's the third generation design, and it's really difficult to overstate its importance to the Wolfsburg maker. Since the introduction of this mid-sized SUV model line back in 2007, it's regularly been the company's global bestseller, consistently since 2018 ahead of the Golf hatch it's always borrowed its engineering from. The second generation version, announced in 2016, then updated in 2020, was even more successful than the first, contributing greatly to a sales total that had crested 7.5 million. By the time of the introduction of this Mark III version in autumn 2023. This rejuvenated design shares its general size and Volkswagen SUV lineup market positioning with its predecessor just above the T-Roc and just below the Touareg, but not a lot else. The evolved exterior look is merely a prelude to a completely redesigned cabin, which borrows much from the design revolution also seen in the 9th generation Passat, with which this Tiguan now shares its upgraded MQB Evo platform. Infotainment's also on a different level from before, borrowing lessons learned from the ID.7. There's no lengthier 7-seat Tiguan all-space version this time round. Less surprisingly, there's no full electrification option either. Volkswagen has its separate, pricier ID.4 model in this segment for that. What Wolfsburg has done is dramatically improve its plug-in hybrid technology, so that in theory, a Tiguan bought in this form can almost be used like an electric car. As before, the Tiguan shares its drivetrains with three other slightly differently orientated but similarly sized Volkswagen Group models: the Škoda Karoq, the Audi A3 Sportback and the Cupra Formentor. But it has its own niche apart from cars like those, slightly larger than a Qashqai class mid-sized SUV and posh without being premium badged. For the last couple of decades, lots of people have liked that. Will they like this latest take on the Tiguan theme? Well, let's put this car through the industry's most comprehensive review, the Car and Driving Road Test. So here we are in the third generation version of that icon of middle-class family motoring, Volkswagen's Tiguan. Behind the wheel, this mid-sized SUV feels different yet familiar. Different because you're faced with a much more digitalised cockpit, complete now with a steering column gear-shifting stalk like you'd get in a Volkswagen EV. But familiar because there's a reassuringly solid and confident feel to the cabin ergonomics and the way that everything works. Will that continue to extend into the way this car drives? Well, let's find out. Well, pretty much yes. A Tiguan customer won't typically be looking for anything particularly dynamic behind the wheel. They will prioritise refinement, comfort and, a little surprisingly, if the sales numbers are to be believed, four-wheel drive, though Volkswagen's 4Motion system wasn't yet available at the time of this test, just after launch. The big change with this Mark III model, the adoption of the company's new, more electrified MQB Evo platform, doesn't feel like much of a big change from behind the wheel, but that's only because Wolfsburg has decided it should be so, keeping the road manners uninspiringly firm but comfortable, the way it thinks most customers will like it. Actually though, quite a lot's gone on in terms of re-engineering. There's a redesigned independent rear suspension setup and new dampers, increased camber stiffness and revised anti-roll bars for the McPherson strut front and 4-link rear suspension. For the first time, the brand has also added in the Vehicle Dynamics Manager system we first saw on the Golf GTI, which coordinates the stability, traction and XDS electronic differential lock functions, a bit like the conductor of an orchestra, so that they better work together. This also makes possible adoption of the latest 𝗙cie𝗹𝗹𝟎 version of Volkswagen's adaptive damping system, with its myriad of settings, 15 in all, a development irrelevant to the vast majority of UK Tiguan customers who won't specify this costly extra. It's a pity 𝗙cie𝗹𝗹𝟎 is so expensive because, rather disappointingly, given all the work that's gone into the suspension, the ride is slightly firmer than it was before, not an attribute a typical Tiguan customer will much appreciate. And you'd feel tarmac tears and potholes even more keenly if you made the mistake of paying extra for the big 20-inch wheels and the optional dynamic driving package, which gives you the stiffer sports suspension. That pack also includes more direct progressive steering, where the gearing quickens off-centre. But that's another thing you don't really need, thanks to the way that Wolfsburg has retuned this car's standard electromechanical power steering. It's still not particularly feelsome, but it is accurate and precise, combining with the well-controlled body movements to give the reassuringly stable feel on twisting secondary roads that potential Tiguan customers will like. That new MQB Evo platform means the end of manual transmission in a Tiguan and supposedly allows for a greater degree of powertrain electrification. That doesn't refer to any kind of EV version, of course. As you probably know, that market's covered off in this segment by the brand's ID.4. What you might think that extra electrification means here is provision of the kind of full hybrid engine that most of this Volkswagen's competitors now provide. But the Tiguan still can't offer that because, unaccountably, the VW Group doesn't have one. Your dealer will try and gloss over that fact by mentioning the new e-hybrid PHEV variants, which we'll brief you on in a moment, or by talking about the mild hybrid 𝗙cie engine tech it does have, which isn't the same thing at all because it can't ever allow the car to run solely on battery power, even for short periods. Since 𝗙cie Tiguans are going to account for the majority of UK sales, that's what we've elected to try here. It's the first time we've seen any kind of electrified Tiguan you can't plug in, with the 1.5 litre 4-cylinder petrol engine in question, like all the mechanicals here, carried over from the Golf hatch this SUV these days comfortably outsells. That means a choice of outputs, 130 PS or, as in this case, 150 PS. And there's a choice of 4 drive modes activated by this little lower centre console dial: Eco, Comfort, Sport and Individual. Unless your motoring really will be suburban based, we'd suggest you don't try and save a few pennies with the lower power model, because even with 150 PS, an 𝗙cie Tiguan isn't the most sprightly feeling thing. The stats say this higher powered model improves the 0 to 62 mile an hour figure from 10.6 to 9.1 seconds, and the top speed from 123 to 130 miles an hour. It doesn't feel as quick as that. And because this is a Tiguan, that doesn't really matter. As usual with a mild hybrid, the 𝗙cie engine works with a 48-volt belt starter generator and a 48-volt lithium-ion battery that gets charged through regenerative braking energy delivered when coasting or off-throttle. What this engine really needs is a bit more mid-range pulling power, which is possibly why Volkswagen has decided to ignore the current anti-black pump fuel zeitgeist and continue to offer its 2-litre TDI 150 PS diesel unit. This unit's benchmark performance figures 62 miles an hour in 9.4 seconds en route to 129 miles an hour are much like those of the 𝗙cie, but the 360 Nm torque figure that accompanies TDI progress is nearly 50% gutsier than the petrol model can manage. Hence this engine's improvement in braked towing capacity from 1.8 to 2 tonnes. which is something that, as before, you can't have with an e-hybrid PHEV Tiguan. Unlike its rivals, Volkswagen still hasn't got around to designing a plug-in hybrid powertrain that can drive all four wheels. Perhaps another reason why that TDI version's still hanging around. The e-hybrid Tiguan now uses a slightly larger 1.5-litre engine, and there are now two versions of it with either 204 or 272 PS. The key change, though, is that both now get a far larger 19.7 kilowatt-hour battery, up from 13 kilowatt-hours before, which has nearly doubled EV drive range to 60 miles. Enough, Volkswagen reckons, to allow most families to use a Tiguan e-hybrid, much like an EV. You won't get anywhere close to that EV range figure, of course, if you use all the performance on offer. The 204 PS version makes 62 miles an hour in 8.2 seconds en route to 130 miles an hour. For the 272 PS variant, the only other model in the range with the higher 2-ton braked towing limit, it's 7.2 seconds and 134 miles an hour. As with the old Tiguan e-hybrid, there's a 6-speed DSG Auto gearbox to replace the 7-speed DSG Auto used in the conventionally engined models. As before, the Auto gearbox works with the brand's clever Eco Assist system, using navigation data to automatically modify throttle usage for greater efficiency and able to proactively take into account local speed limit information, town boundary signs, junctions and roundabouts. We'd expected that this would also be accompanied by the standardisation of the brand's Travel Assist semi-autonomous drive system. It is, after all, now standard on all versions of the smaller T-Cross. But no, Travel Assist remains something you have to pay extra for unless you venture up to the priciest end of the Tiguan range. You might want it though, particularly if this car is likely to be frequently used for longer trips. To refresh your memory on Travel Assist, it's a setup capable of taking over the steering, braking and acceleration of this car at any speed, providing the driver keeps their hands on the capacitive steering wheel, which includes this Travel Assist button to activate the system. To achieve its sporting role, the Travel Assist system relies on two key features: lane assist for lateral guidance and adaptive cruise control for longitudinal guidance. That's one useful bit of Tiguan technology. Another is a Park Assist Plus system that can remember difficult parking manoeuvres at frequently visited locations and perform them for you, potentially even via a phone app as you stand outside the car. It's all really well thought out, just like pretty much every other dynamic element of this Tiguan, right down to the soothing plink of the speed warning limiter, which sounds like the master of ceremonies tapping his wine glass prior to a speech. It all means that as long as you don't expect a particularly rewarding level of driving engagement, you'll probably like the car a lot. This third generation Tiguan is a recognisable evolution of its popular predecessor, but it wants to move a fraction further up market, hence Volkswagen's decision to make it 30mm longer than before. It's also 4mm taller. Talking of length, there won't be an extended 7-seat all-space version offered this time round, because the brand plans to fill that niche with yet another SUV, the 𝗙ron. This Tiguan's side profile now looks sharper and more athletic, enough to make the old model look rather conservative. It's like coming across someone you used to know who's radically toned themselves up in the gym. In place of the previous version's continuous door handle height character line, this car has a curved undercut above the front and rear wings, forming more powerful shoulder sections. The door handles are lower down, there's a sportier waistline, and the A-pillars and the windscreen look to me more upright, making the bonnet appear longer and more powerful. Slippery aerodynamics, the CD figures fallen from 0.33 to 0.28, come courtesy of sleeker ID4 derived door mirrors and a new rear roof spoiler. And plusher versions like this one get black wheel arches shrouding smarter alloy rims that can be between 17 and 20 inches in size. From the front, you'd know this was an EV era car because the old model's classic radiator grille gets replaced here by a glass-covered horizontal strip. This can feature an illuminating strip which lies between significantly slimmer headlamps that now get the option, fitted here, of the brand's sophisticated IQ Light HD matrix technology. All the cooling's now located here in the bumper, with vertical air curtains either side that route airflow to the wheel housings and provide brake disc cooling. Predictably, the rear gets that staple of modern SUV design, the full-width lighting strip between the LED tail lamp clusters. This illuminates on plusher variants, which are also set apart by chrome corner strips in the lower section of the bumper. Much more important, of course, is what sits beneath all of this tinsel, the latest MLB Evo version of the Modulare 𝗙diese MLB platform that Volkswagen Group models have been using for over a decade now, which is what's allowed for this Mark III model's new PHEV drivetrains. And the dramatically improved cabin screen tech, which is what we're going to look at right now. Sure enough, this third generation Tiguan properly enters the digital age, though whether you'll like it is another question entirely. For sure, the MIB4 twin screen setup is a huge improvement over what we originally saw in the current Mark VIII Golf, where the stampede towards digitalisation seemingly took priority over driver-centric ergonomics. There's still some evidence of that here. The manner in which the climate controls have been mainly absorbed by this centre monitor, and the way that moving the gear shifter to the right-hand wheel stalk rather overburdens the stalk on the left. But there are compensations too. Fancy backlit trimming panels with their Morse code-like graphics, uber supportive seats, and the kind of solid build quality that will probably have been one of the things that prompted you to consider a Tiguan in the first place. Because there are now no manual gearbox versions of this car, hence the steering column stalk transmission selector, the centre console has been totally redesigned. Interestingly, in an era where BMW Group models are deleting lower rotary controllers, Volkswagen has added one, though this device with its integrated OLED display merely alters audio volume, driving modes, and on the plushest models, what Volkswagen rather annoyingly calls atmospheres, basically pre-programmed settings for ambient lighting and music. You could, for instance, add playlists from Spotify or Apple Music. There are 5 major atmosphere settings: lounge, energetic, joy, minimal, and me. Borrowing a trick from Tesla and the Chinese, there's also now a dual phone charging station which, along with the twin USB-C ports, can be hidden by this unusual angled hinged panel in the forward part of the centre console. If your Tiguan has a head-up display, it'll no longer be projected onto a rather cheap-looking piece of plexiglass, but onto the base of the windscreen itself, which allows the system to show much more, cluttering up your view ahead or embellishing it with useful information. Everyone has their own perspective on that one. Some of the basic ergonomic errors that blighted later versions of the Mark II model have been corrected, so the previous silly touch-sensitive steering wheel buttons thankfully have been banished, and though the awkward-to-use centre stack volume and temperature slider controls still remain, they are at least now backlit, so you don't have to fish around for them in the dark. The 10.25-inch instrument screen is the usual clearly formatted Volkswagen affair rather than the cluttered digifest so many Far Eastern makers serve up, and with the right steering wheel view format selected, remains capable of showing full screen mapping, surprisingly still quite unusual in the class. For that, you'll need to select a screen layout with a configurable centre panel, which can also show drive assist graphics or trip data. There are actually 3 selectable layout formats, one with a central rev counter flanked by data circles, and then the 2 with the central data panel, one with twin dials and one with flanking square data boxes. Where the central display has flanking data, you can configure the left-hand side of the screen to show efficiency info, while the right-hand side of the screen can show things like phone and audio info and a compass. Overall, whatever layout format you select, this display is vastly better than the much smaller instrument screens you get on Volkswagen EVs. The complementing central infotainment monitor will be either sensibly sized at 12.9 inches or, as in this case, rather overlarge for the dash design at 15 inches in size, with its main functionality borrowed from the new software setup we first saw in the ID.7. As there, this screen has permanently displaying upper and lower bars, the bottom section for temperature controls, the top right configurably populated by your 5 favourite functions. Click this lower blue framed square to view the information you want in various customisable widget tiles, or click this upper right app button to view a screen full of little icons. These include the App Connect, Apple CarPlay or Android Auto setup, and the cabin's elegant 30-colour ambient lighting system. There's also a Moods section which can give you various colour coordinated cabin themes: infinity, eternity, desire, euphoria and vitality. Perfect if you're heading home after the kind of taxing day of work that made it possible for you to afford a Tiguan in the first place. Many of these applications can also be activated by the much improved IDA voice control system fitted above base trim, which, unlike the previous generation one, can activate drive modes and has been configured to work with ChatGPT, so that if it can't react to your question, it'll go away and search for an almost instant answer online before responding. It can also more accurately work with broad queries as well as specific ones. So, for instance, I'm hungry will bring up a list of local restaurants, while I'm cold will increase the interior temperature. As mentioned earlier, we'd have preferred to see separated climate controls, but the replacement climate screen setup here works pretty well, filling the monitor with detailed graphics, which can then disappear with a touch of the provided home button that allows you to return to the main menu. The seats, as we mentioned earlier, are excellent, particularly if you've got the ergo-active 14-way power adjustable chairs we've been trying here, which include 4-way lumbar support and a pneumatic 10-chamber pressure point massage function in the backrests. You can even set them to heat or cool you when the outside ambience reaches a predefined temperature. Obviously, they position you more commandingly than you would be in a Golf, and though your perch is still hardly lofty, it's high enough to usefully aid over-the-shoulder vision, though all variants include all-round sensors and a reversing camera. The cheap plastics you'll find lower down the dash on most rivals are generally absent here, and other little hallmarks of quality are frequently evident, like the carpeted storage areas, the stitching on the upper and lower parts of the dash, and the way that the door card to dashboard surfaces mate together. Also nicely stitched and covered is the steering wheel, which hasn't been covered with the kind of cheap-feeling vegan material you now find used by so many rivals. But letting the side down is the gear selector stalk I mentioned earlier, which has the kind of build integrity you'd find with a toddler's toy. Disappointing for something you interact with so frequently. As usual with the Tiguan, practicality's been well thought through, though the useful under-seat drawers that featured with the previous model seem to have disappeared. Overall, though, the cabin's been improved in this regard, aided no doubt by the fact that this lower centre console no longer has to be designed to accommodate a manual gear stick. This nice ratcheting armrest covers a deep area with removable silver cup holder panels and a 12-volt socket. Ahead of that, the twin cup holder section hasn't been covered, but the compartment with its integrated stays lifts out, revealing itself to be another cheap plastic fitting for times when you might want to use this space for something else. There's an overhead sunglasses compartment, a useful cubby by the driver's knee, and ticket clips in the sun visors. And as before, there are deep carpeted door bins that can hold a 1.5 litre bottle. Right, time to take a seat in the back. Now, we told you earlier on about this Mark III model's 30mm increase in body length, but none of that enhancement is between the wheels, so we're not expecting rear seat space to be improved. Alas, it hasn't been, which means that, as before, if there's a long-legged person in front of you, there isn't going to be a huge amount of space for your knees. Fortunately, also as before, this bench base slides by up to 180mm forwards and back, A feature which still isn't a given in this class. The backrest reclines too via these pull straps for greater comfort on longer journeys. This central transmission tunnel isn't as awkwardly prominent as it is in some competitors, so if you do have to accommodate 3 adults back here, things will be slightly easier for the middle occupant, helped by this Mark III model's extra 10mm of headroom. A 6-footer will easily fit, even with the optional panoramic glass roof fitted. When there's only 2 of you, a central armrest folds to reveal another pull strap that, when tugged, allows you to slide out a complicated looking dual cup holder arrangement that we think might well be taken apart or smashed with a drinks bottle by an inquisitive youngster in the first couple of weeks of ownership. The panel can be angled towards either rear occupant and can hold a phone upright if you're watching a video on it. Older kids will appreciate the provision of twin USB-C ports back here and the twin phone pockets in the seat backs, which sit above the main seat back pockets. Useful narrow bins are located along the seat sides, and there are big door bins and overhead reading lights. Avoid base trim, and you get this 3-zone climate control panel as well. Finally, let's take a look out back. Now, here we've got a powered tailgate, but the 2 base spec variants have to do without that feature. This is where you get the benefit of that extra 30mm of body length. The hatch rises to reveal a spacious 652-litre boot to the height of the rear seat backrests. In the conventionally engined models, that's up from 520 litres before. And that's a figure difficult to better in this class. Up to 9 carry-on suitcases will fit. Even the 490-litre figure you get from the e-hybrid PHEV models, up from 381 litres before, is better than some conventionally engined rivals. A Ford Kuga, for instance, which in its conventional form offers only 412 litres, unless you slide its rear bench right forward. Avoid the very cheapest level of Tiguan trim and you get this adjustable height boot floor, though no standard spare wheel resides beneath it. And there are deep recesses either side, so bulky items like push chairs and golf bags can easily fit in widthwise. There are the usual tie-down points and bright lights sit on either side, though Volkswagen has missed the opportunity to build one into the tailgate, which would have facilitated nighttime loading. There's a pull-out bag hook and a 12-volt socket on the right. A warning triangle is neatly built into the inner side of the tailgate, and there's a useful storage cubby here on the top left. What else? Well, because the rear seat backs recline, you can set them in an upright position, which might help with squeezing that holiday luggage in. Go for the neat optional swivelling tow bar, and you can activate that via this left-hand cargo sidewall switch here. All models get a rear backrest that conveniently splits 40-20-40, so that the middle part can fold to allow you to poke through longer items from the boot. With the rear seat totally flat, up to 1,692 litres of pretty level space can be freed up with conventionally engined models. The relentless upward trajectory of new car pricing continues. When we first tried the previous generation, Tiguan, back in 2016, prices started from around £23,000. When we reacquainted ourselves with the facelifted version of that car in 2020, the starting figure had crept up to around £27,000. And now, for this Mark III design, from launch and at the time of this test in summer 2024, Volkswagen wants at least £34,000 from you. And most likely rather more than that, since that sum gets you only the base standard spec version. Few will probably want. Reasonably spec'd Tiguans start from around £2,000 more than that with life trim, though we can't really see why you'd choose that when for just a few pennies more you can get the rather better specified volume match version we'd recommend, for which at the time of this test you'd need to have budgeted around £36,000. Plusher Tiguan variants are priced up at around £40,000, either the Elegance spec model that we're trying here or the sportier looking R-Line version. All models now only come with the brand's usual 7-speed dual clutch DSG auto gearbox. And 4Motion four-wheel drive will also be available as an option with mainstream models with the mainstream engines. Expect a hot Tiguan R performance version with the 2-litre petrol turbo engine from the Golf R sometime in this car's production cycle too. In terms of the segment value proposition that Tiguan asking figures represent, we're going to confine our comparisons to upper mid-sized family SUVs. Volkswagen believes it targets fractionally smaller family crossovers like Nissan's Qashqai and 𝗙cie𝗹𝗹𝟎, with the next model down in its SUV range, the T-Roc. For a better like-for-like comparison, you need to be looking at models like the Ford Kuga, the Peugeot 3008, the Toyota RAV4 or the Hyundai Tucson, all of which cost much the same as the Tiguan. Also similarly priced are the Jeep Compass, the KGM Torres, and another VW Group model, the Cupra Formentor. You'd save a bit by going for a Kia Sportage, a Mini Countryman, a Mazda CX-5, or the further Volkswagen Group model that shares some of its engines with this Volkswagen, Škoda's Karoq. And you'd save even more in this segment by choosing a Citroën C5 Aircross or an MG HS. If it's a Tiguan you really want, then you're going to need to know just how generous Volkswagen's been with standard specs. So let's take a look at that now, starting with the features that all Tiguan models include. Expect to find LED headlamps, roof rails, heat insulating glass, LED tail lamps, powered heated mirrors, an alarm, all-round parking sensors, and a very complete portfolio of camera safety kit. Inside with all Tiguans, you get Volkswagen's Digital Cockpit Pro, 10.25-inch instrument screen and a 12.9-inch central infotainment display, incorporating Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, an 8-speaker DAB audio system, and Volkswagen's wireless App Connect setup, allowing you to interact with the car via your smartphone. Plus, there's the brand's AirCare Climatronic air conditioning system, an auto-dimming rear-view mirror, a sliding rear bench, and a rear-view camera. If you're able to progress from the standard spec to life trim, the standard model's 17-inch Bari alloy wheels will be swapped for 18-inch Napoli alloy rims with a black diamond turned surface and air-stop run-flat tyres. The front seats gain power-adjustable lumbar support, the headlights gain high beam assist, the door mirrors gain a folding function, and a 3-zone climate control system adds a rear air conditioning control panel. There's also ambient lighting with door puddle light projection, navigation, adaptive cruise control, and Volkswagen's Park Assist Plus with park distance control system, which can steer you into spaces and, remember, manoeuvres into frequently used parking spaces. The similarly priced match spec model we recommended earlier is identifiable by its silver roof rails and 3D LED rear combination lights, which have a special signal pattern. Here, the headlamps have dynamic range control, signature running light graphics, and dynamic cornering lights. If you can stretch up to this plush elegance variant, added features include 19-inch Catenea alloy wheels with black diamond turned surface, chrome mouldings on the side windows, heated washer jets, and an illuminated light line between the headlights. Plus, there are heated ergo-active 14-way power-adjustable sports comfort front seats with a massage function and an interior ambient lighting system with 30 colour options. At this level in the range, you also get a powered tailgate, an area view camera system, and keyless entry. There's also Volkswagen's Travel Assist system, which provides for a degree of semi-autonomous driving, a camera and radar sensor controlled assistance system that will autonomously accelerate, brake, and steer your Tiguan while maintaining a safe distance to vehicles ahead. Similarly priced at the top of the range is the R-Line trim level, which is spec'd much like an elegance variant, but is set apart by 20-inch Leeds alloy wheels with a black and grey diamond turned surface and R-Line sports style bumpers. Inside, R-Line trim gives you brushed stainless steel pedals and upholstery in Grayson velour with bolsters in art velour. What about options? Well, there are a few key features you might want. The larger 15-inch central screen, for instance, the head-up display, the Harman Kardon sound system upgrade, leather upholstery with active climate seats, a tilting and sliding panoramic glass sunroof, and the clever but pricey IQ Light HD matrix headlamps that we've got fitted here. With pricier models, you can add a dynamic driving package, which gives you sports suspension and more direct progressive steering, and can also include the brand's now improved 15-setting DCC Pro adaptive chassis control adaptive damping system. You'll almost certainly have to pay more for your chosen paint colour. We've got Nightshade Blue Metallic here. The only standard shade is a dour, solid Urano grey. An optional winter pack allows you to add heat for the front seats, steering wheel and washer jets if your chosen Tiguan lacks those features. Practical extras include door sill protectors, the usual floor mats, a luggage net and the horizontal roof bars that would allow you to fit carriers for bikes, skis or snowboards. If you fit the retractable tow bar we have here, you can add a compact bicycle carrier on the back. The tow bar fitting includes trailer detection, which prevents trailer sway. On to safety, an area where Volkswagen continues to keep this model well up to the highest class standard. A more advanced multifunction front-facing camera allows for an improvement in the standard kit tally across the range. So, for instance, all Tiguans now get an oncoming vehicle braking when turning feature that safeguards you at junctions and includes swerve support. All models also get side assist, basically a blind spot monitor, an exit warning system which alerts occupants about to open a door in the face of an oncoming object, and rear traffic alert, which warns you of oncoming vehicles when you're reversing out of a space. As before, standard on all Tiguan models is a front assist autonomous emergency braking system that on the open road scans the road ahead as you drive for potential accident hazards, warning you if one is detected and automatically braking if necessary. You get that same kind of functionality at urban speeds as well, as part of a city emergency braking system included as part of the front assist package. This setup also includes predictive pedestrian protection that specifically searches for pedestrians who might be about to step out in front of you, and if necessary, can initiate braking to avoid them. All Tiguan models also get lane assist, which alerts you if you drift out of lane. And across the range, the Wolfsburg brand has installed an automatic post-collision braking system that automatically brakes the car down to 6 miles an hour after a collision. So if, say, someone hits you and understandably you go to pieces, the car will automatically sort itself out. We also appreciate the standard fitment of a driver drowsiness monitor system that does what it says on the tin, prompting you to stop for a restorative coffee if lethargy is detected. Plus, it's worth mentioning that all Tiguan models get dynamic road sign display, which pictures speed signs as you pass and displays them in your eye line. The usual passive safety features are fitted as well, of course. There are twin front, side and curtain airbags linked to a pan-European emergency call service that alerts the rescue authorities if you're in an accident and they go off. As you'd expect, you get ISOFIX, child seat fastenings, a tyre pressure monitoring system and anti-whiplash front head restraints. On top of this, there are the usual electronic systems to try and ensure that neither of these features will ever be needed. That means ESC stability control and an ASR traction control system. There's ABS braking, of course, a hill hold assist feature stops you from drifting backwards on uphill junctions, and panic stops will be advertised to following motorists by automatically activating hazard warning lights. If you want more, an optional driver assistance package adds emergency assist, which will bring the car to a controlled stop if you're taken ill at the wheel, and a proactive passenger protection system, which braces the passenger cell, closing windows and sunroof if an impact is deemed inevitable. This package also includes the travel assist system, power folding mirrors, and the area view camera system if your chosen Tiguan lacks those features. We wonder whether, somewhere in the Volkswagen Group Wolfsburg halls of power, there's some regret at that conglomerate's decision, presumably sometime at the end of the last decade, not to develop a self-charging full hybrid engine, as its two rival car-making giants, Toyota and the Stellantis Group, have done. Instead, Volkswagen Group products soldier on with fairly ineffectual mild hybrid 𝗙cie technology, which can't ever allow the engine to run solely on electric power, even for short periods. The efficiency results of this management blunder are there for all to see, even with the most frugal eco drive mode permanently selected. The typical Tiguan 1.5 𝗙cie 150 PS petrol model we're driving here can officially return no better than 45.6 mpg on the combined cycle and up to 141 grams per kilometre of CO2. Now compare that to the full hybrid models in this segment you could have chosen instead. The Toyota RAV4 manages up to 50.4 mpg and 126 grams per kilometre in front-driven form. The Stellantis engineered Peugeot 3008 hybrid 136e 𝗙cie_6 does even better, up to 52.2 mpg and up to 122 grams per kilometre of CO2. As usual with a mild hybrid, the 𝗙cie engine works with a 48-volt belt starter generator and a 48-volt lithium-ion battery that gets charged through regenerative braking energy delivered when coasting or off-throttle, at which point no emissions are being discharged from the engine, which uses ACT+ active cylinder management to cut its use of 4 cylinders to just 2 at light to low throttle loads. There's not an awful lot of efficiency benefit in ordering this same setup in lower powered 1.5e 𝗙cie 130 PS form. That variant returns up to 46.3 mpg on the combined cycle and up to 139 grams per kilometre of CO2. It's getting increasingly unusual to see a diesel engine option in this segment outside of Volkswagen Group products, but VW doggedly persists in offering one. Its returns aren't actually much different from that of this petrol model, the single 2-litre TDI 150 PS variant, delivering up to 52.3 mpg and 141 grams per kilometre. The brand's stock answer to the issues we've posed so far in this section will be to point to its freshly redeveloped e-hybrid PHEV technology, but that costs a lot more money, and anyway, rivals offer that too, though admittedly not with the kind of advanced EV range a Tiguan e-hybrid can now offer, thanks to a considerably larger 19.7 kilowatt-hour battery than the previous generation Tiguan e-hybrid model could offer, up from 13 kilowatt-hours. EV range potential has jumped hugely from just 31 miles to 60 miles with this updated model. Volkswagen reckons that will allow many families to use this car just like an EV, given German market research suggesting that 95% of journeys are less than 31 miles and 99% are shorter than 62 miles. That range extension dramatically affects the efficiency figures, of course, which, as usual with the PHEV, mainly show up how ineffectual the current WLTP rating cycle is in measuring the true frugality and cleanliness of a plug-in hybrid. In 204 PS form, a Tiguan e-hybrid is rated at up to 706.2 mpg on the combined cycle. In faster 272 PS guys, it's supposed to be up to 565 mpg. In reality, if you keep the car fully charged, its frugality will probably be somewhere close to what a careful owner would get in a diesel-powered model. Where you will get discernible benefit from the Fantasyland stats, though, is of course when it comes to CO2, with super low ratings that'll reduce your benefit-in-kind tax payments to near EV levels. The 204 PS model is measured at just 9 grams per kilometre. With the 272 PS variant, it's 11 grams per kilometre. A Tiguan e-hybrid would go over 620 miles between fuel stops, so, for example, you could travel from London to Paris and back without refuelling. Its battery can now be charged at a home wall box at up to 11 kilowatts. A more common 7.4 kilowatt wall box needs around 3.5 hours for a full charge. It'd be about 5 hours from a domestic socket. Out and about, your Tiguan e-hybrid can now be DC charged at up to 50 kilowatts. Across the range, efficiency figures are aided by Volkswagen's useful Eco Assist feature, which uses navigation data to automatically slow the car for junctions, roundabouts and sharp bends. Insurance groups vary widely, starting from Group 18 for the cheapest 𝗙cie 130 PS standard spec version and ranging right up to Group 31 for a top 272 PS e-hybrid R-Line variant. As for depreciation, well, the previous generation model held on to between 53 to 57% of its value over a 3-year, 36,000 mile ownership period. We'd expect this Mark III model to at least match that. To give you some segment perspective, that's fractionally above a rival Ford Kuga and around 7% above a rival Hyundai Tucson. As for servicing across the range, well, as usual with Volkswagen models, there's a choice of either fixed or flexible maintenance packages. You'll choose the fixed approach if you cover less than 9,300 miles a year, and with this the car will typically be looked at every 12 months. If your daily commute is more than 25 miles and your Tiguan will regularly be driven on longer distance journeys, you'll be able to work with a flexible regime that can see you travelling up to 18,600 miles between garage visits or every 2 years, whichever is sooner. And warranties? Well, as with Stellantis products, VW Group cars continue to lose out to their Far Eastern competitors here. The Tiguan, as before, offers a standard package of just 3 years and 60,000 miles. We can't really see why Volkswagen couldn't extend this. The identically engined Cupra Formentor offers a 5-year, 90,000 mile warranty. The Tiguan e-Hybrid has a separate 8-year battery warranty, which also covers the battery for up to 100,000 miles. All Tiguans come with 3 years of pan-European roadside assistance that has no mileage restriction. The paintwork warranty lasts for 3 years, and as you'd expect, this car's protected by a 12-year anti-corrosion package. The Tiguan has evolved, but not beyond recognition. If you liked it before, you'll like it even more now with its newly chiselled looks and more advanced powertrain selection. The redesigned cabin we think is key. The previous model's interior couldn't really carry off a near premium price tag. With this third generation model, that had to change, and to some extent it has. Also key are the advances made to this model's plug-in hybrid option. Previously, a Tiguan e-Hybrid's all-electric range was little more than a nice-to-have bonus. Now, though, for many family customers, the PHEV version of this car really could function pretty much like a full EV most of the time. The problem, though, is the price tag attached to that technology, which throws into sharp focus the fact that this Volkswagen can't offer the non-plug-in, frugal, self-charging full hybrid technology you'll find in most of its rivals. This test car's 𝗙cie mild hybrid setup does its best, but the efficiency figures tell their own story. For all that, though, it's not hard to see why the Tiguan remains such a popular choice in its sector. There's the potential to get all the quality of a premium badge mid-sized SUV for the price of a budget brand contender, and the whole package comes with the enduring appeal of that Volkswagen badge and the enduring residual values that will go along with it. Such has always been this car's appeal, and in that respect, little has changed with this Mark III model. Much else is different, though. This is a cleverer type of Tiguan, as it needs to be for the prices being asked. These might suggest a mid-sized SUV with a more premium badge, but there's no doubt that this one now has more of a premium feel.